Hello, everyone. My name is Akal, and I am a somatic therapist. If you have, any desire to know what that is, there are links below this video. One is to my website, and the other is to my blog. So you can read my blah, 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 and maybe you'll get some idea what the hell it is that I do. So, what I wanted to talk about today is orgasm. I wanted to talk about orgasm in terms of magnitude or strength. And I'd like to talk a little bit about a concept in Ayurveda called Ojas. And finally, I would like to cover why it's important relative to enlightenment. And actually, I'm going to start with the enlightenment piece. So, why should we in contemporary times be even remotely closely, or I guess, interested in this concept of enlightenment, which seems to be thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And, why would we have any interest in this? We have technology and we've got drugs. I say that we should be interested in enlightenment because technology and drugs are really only temporarily satisfying. It doesn't matter if you're using drugs like lifestyle prescription drugs or illegal drugs. It doesn't really matter. They are only temporary satisfaction. Basically, we are constantly chasing desire to either feel better or, pleasure. So the idea with enlightenment is that the pleasure becomes something that is experienced internally. We start to realize that we are complete within ourselves and we don't need something external. And what do I mean by this idea that there's this idea of external versus internal? If we have external focus, that means that much of our ambition in life, much of our drive in life, much of our, our desires in life are focused outward. And I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that other than it's only half the equation. So I'll give you a real basic example. Let's talk about our parents. So my parents say, oh, you need to eat more fruits and vegetables. And let's say I'm like, 5, 6 years old. All right, mom, dad, I'm going to eat more fruits and vegetables. They are behaving as an external authority. An external authority is somebody who basically is like a teacher. They tell you, hey, you need to do X, Y, Z, and so you do it. The idea here is not you're doing it blindly. You're not supposed to be a zombie. You're supposed to actually pay attention to how your body responds to the things you bring into it. So in the case of more fruits and vegetables, which one could argue, I don't think any dietitian, nutritionist, etc., is going to say that is a bad call. However, I will tell you that if one were to eat tons and tons of fruits and vegetables and then become older, maybe, just maybe, all of a sudden they don't like citrus fruit. Maybe their body doesn't respond well to citrus fruit. Maybe sour makes them uncomfortable. Maybe something within their biochemistry changed that makes citrus fruit no longer compatible with them. So this is where the idea of inner authority comes in. So inner authority says, I pay attention to how my body responds. I'm paying attention to my intuition and my instincts, but as well as like indigestion and things like that. And this is how we move towards balance in life, is by balancing out this external authority with our internal authority. So when it comes to enlightenment, we should be interested because whether we achieve enlightenment in this lifetime or not is not the point. What's important is that not to be cliche, but it's about the path. So the path towards enlightenment is where all the growth happens. You can look at life as basically being a school from point A to point B, from birth to death. What's the meaning of life? Well, it's to sometimes fuck up and to learn from your mistakes. And sometimes it's experience joy, love, peace, etc. But life is always about growth, ultimately. And so we will get those situations in life, will rise, whether it's pain, fear, and suffering or otherwise, which are to spur on our growth. So enlightenment is really, really important because without those practices like meditation, without yoga, without tantra, without Qigong, Tai Chi, so many different practices, and none of these practices are enlightenment. They're just technique. And they're technique that move us towards clarity, towards authentic expression, towards, woo-woo. So a lot of people have a great deal of desire. I want to speak to aliens or ghosts or whatever it may be. So we should be interested in enlightenment for those reasons alone. Again, clarity will always help you in life. I mean, is anyone going to argue that having a clear mind is not useful? So this brings up the other idea, is why do we go after and pursue sex so intensely, particularly as men? Three P's. Procreation. You want to have kids? Okay. Pleasure. Yep, we all know about that. And then finally, psychogenesis. So psychogenesis, you could call it transmutation, you can call it a number of different terms, but basically it's the conversion of raw sexual energy transmuted into other functions. The process of enlightenment is very much about, in terms of the actual process, is very much about this psychogenesis. It's about the conversion of this sexual energy into, higher vibrations. So one thing that we have to kind of look at when it comes to all this is, let's just say a grossly physical level, is we have to look at the fact that ejaculation is always depleting. Now, the magnitude of depletion, going back to the other idea of, the magnitude of orgasm. So as the orgasm intensity increases, the less energy we lose. If you have a really, really weak orgasm, then all the energy simply goes out. There wasn't enough pressure to move it through our body's internal energetic hydraulics. So this also brings me to this idea of Ojas. Ojas is a kind of an obscure term in Ayurveda, and Ojas is always linked to the foods that you bring in, and it's always linked to sexual energy. If you eat shit food, you're going to get less from the food. The body will produce less of this Ojas, which is associated with the water and earth elements, meaning it's kind of a viscous fluid. And I like to think of it as the ultimate distillate of the foods that we bring in. So one of the things that depletes this Ojas happens to be ejaculation. So the more you ejaculate, the weaker your immune system. Ojas is always related to immunity, and it's also related to the strength and radiance of your aura. So if your aura is strong, you have a strong immune system. Microbes will not affect you as strongly, nor the sort of more subtle energetic aspects of our reality. There are negative aspects of that which will also affect you. So this Ojas, I don't want to beat it to death, but it's a very vital fluid, and so we need to eat well. We need to watch our stress. We need to make sure that we're moderating our ejaculations, and then we have greater immunity. So here's a little bit of personal anecdotal story. So in my 20s, during my chaos years, I was very busy. I was highly stressed. I was a mess. But I was doing everything you're supposed to do. I was going to school, working full time, very responsible behaviors. Society perceived me as very successful in that regard because I was busy, and we love proactive people in our culture. So in my 20s, though, I was also ejaculating daily, sometimes more than once a day. And so compounded along with all the stress that I was under, the constant depletion of from ejaculation, my diet was excellent. I'm not going to knock on my diet. My diet was fantastic. So I had these two huge factors. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. That was one of the side effects of all this. My nervous system was all over the place. I had shaking in my hands in my 20s. I felt disconnected from my will and my direction in life. I had no concept of my intuition. My instincts were basically, not even available to me, Joel, the ego. So I had all these sort of like negative things that were occurring in my life until my late 20s, when I felt very, very uncomfortable and very tight. And then I started to meditate. And as I started to meditate, I was like, oh, I get it. I started to do yoga every day. Oh, I get it. And then I started to kind of work with sexual energy. And then I really got it. Sexual energy is at the core of our being. It is at the base of our being. You can do all the yoga you want. You can meditate all you want. If you are discharging constantly, you are always depleting the internal pressure necessary in order to create these internal biochemical changes that are necessary for enlightenment to occur. And enlightenment, again, is a concern to you if you want clarity, authentic expression, and the woo-woo. So now this is going to bring me on to, so one of the other things that happened a lot during my 20s was there was definitely a noticeable sort of messiness in my nervous system. Other than the sort of shakiness in the hands, I just had so many issues, and anxiety. Oh my God, the anxiety was so intense. The depressions would come on all the time. Anyway, I was just a mess. So this brings me to what I discovered along the way after finally recognizing that sexual energy was important, was what I discovered when I was working with, I guess, the woman who taught me sexual tantra. So what I discovered was that the magnitude of orgasm is extremely important. So the magnitude of orgasm has to do with, I don't want to get all scientific or even go into math at all, but we'll call it a ratio. So it's a ratio between charge and discharge. The greater the charge, then relative to the discharge, means that the magnitude of the orgasm increases. So the Kadoshka people, I'm probably mispronouncing it, Kadoshka is a Native American, I guess, sexual tradition, a bit like Tantra. So in Kadoshka, they basically categorize orgasm on 4 levels. You have a level 1, which they call repulsion energy. I call this the sick dog orgasm. So the sick dog orgasm is, you think about what a dog does when it gets sick. It runs off into the corner to be alone, to go puke or lick its wounds or whatever it's going to do. But it really doesn't want your attention at that moment. It feels like shit. So what happens when you masturbate to porno, or, you mountain pound the person you're with, woman or man? It's bloop bloop. The orgasm is lame. It drips out. Not very exciting. But you got off. Aren't you proud? And so in the end, you basically had a really lame orgasm. You don't want to be around the person you're with. Or if it's masturbation, where's that repulsion energy directed? That's for you to look at. I will tell you that I think the vast majority of the men who are watching this, if you're masturbating to porno, can you honestly say that you ever walk away from ejaculation after looking at porno and go, oh, that was amazing. Like, I feel so awesome. Like, I'm ready to go out and, I don't know, like a bowl in a china shop and like go for life. No, you don't. And if you do, if you can masturbate to porno and you feel like fabulous, I love to meet you. I'd love to have a conversation. I want to find out what you're doing. Level 2 orgasm is repulsion to adhesion. It means you're getting a balance of charges here. So level 2 orgasm is a balance between charge and discharge. You have adequate charge, meaning you built up. Let's say you waited a week between your ejaculations. So 1 week between ejaculations was an adequate build-up. Then you feel somewhat connected to the person you're with. And finally, you're also learning about, I guess, maintaining your sexual energy in general. So it's become a bit of a practice chronically over time. So in this particular case, you have enough charge, enough ojas, to create a fairly strong orgasm. But again, you still are not really getting that sense of making love or merging with the person you're with, but you are moving towards adhesion. So it's less likely you're going to behave like a sick dog and want to crawl off into the corner. So that is the level 2. So level 3 orgasm is what they say adhesion to cohesion orgasm, meaning that the charge is much more powerful than the discharge. In these kinds of connections or sexual encounters are related to one, spending a great deal of time in between orgasm or ejaculation rather. 2, feeling very connected to the person you're with, meaning you didn't just like mountain pound. 3 has to do with this is indeed a practice. And this is an encounter or a session that is not done quickly. There may be body work involved, the connection practices, breathing, or maybe you're just really into the person you're with, like they do it for you. So that would be a level 3. And the other thing about a level 3 is that you're actually, because the charge was so great, you actually want to have more sex after you discharge. So there wasn't that great a depletion. So that brings level 4. Level 4. Oh, well, one thing I need to say about level 3. So level 3, you also may experience, in terms of the orgasm itself, you could experience tremors or jerking, or like for me, it was a lot of arching of the spine. These are the orgasms you make the ridiculous faces, et cetera, et cetera. So these are very, very, very strong orgasms. And you might even have visions. I've had those too. I've had moments where I've laughed hysterically, and I have no idea why. These orgasms are very powerful. Remember, they're pushing through your body, through your nervous system, through your energy system, and they may bring to the surface all sorts of buried emotion. I've cried and I've laughed and I've had all sorts of experiences from orgasm, and it sometimes freaks the people out that I'm with. So, and I'm sure others of you out there have had these experiences as well. So this brings me to level 4. Level 4 is the merger orgasm. That is the union orgasm. Tantra, yoga, meditation, qigong, tai chi, all these things are always leading towards this idea of union. It's a union within, in terms of meditation and more the solitary practices. And that union within is the divine masculine, divine feminine. That's a separate video. The union in the case of sex it's almost like a symbolic union. It's a symbolic union in which you're using all these techniques and practices to experience this very strong merger with another human being. It is symbolic on some levels, but it's also very real, is that this merger does create feelings of, like melting into the other person on some level. It's a feeling that you two are one as the same person. So it's almost like individual identities fall away. This kind of sex is rare. It's extremely rare. It can be cultivated. Again, it sometimes requires that you spend a lot of time building to it. You have to feel very connected to the person you're with. And you have to be highly responsible with your sexual energy and life in general. So one of the things that happens during those kinds of orgasms is all those sort of previous manifestations that I mentioned with the jerking and the twitching and the arching. You may also perceive a great deal of light, lots of internal light. Your awareness will be broadly expanded, just very, very, very expanded awareness. And again, going back to that sense of merger with the other person. And again, once all this energy, and again, sex from a tantric perspective, from a perspective of, again, any ancient system, is that it is a technique. It's a technique to move energy. And that's one of the purposes. And going back to the 3 P's I mentioned earlier, psychogenesis or transmutation is this movement of energy, this movement of the raw sexual energy into higher vibrations. And I may do another video on this sometime in the future. So I believe that's all I wanted. Let me look at my sheet. Yeah, that's all I really want to talk about for the moment. Hopefully you got some general idea as to these levels of orgasm and what it takes to achieve them. And again, if you want these intense experiences to occur in your life, you can't just read about it in a book, continue eating shit, continue ejaculating every day, drugs, alcohol, etc., not taking care of your body, and to think on any level you're going to have these greater experiences. You have to change how you live. So with all that said, thank you for listening. I appreciate you all. Bye-bye.